Welcome to this series on business communication. Today we are going to study how to prepare a resume and a CV. In this, we are going to basically prepare a better resume to get a better job. We will also study the concept of resume and what are its uses, how people can get better jobs through better preparation of resume. We will also study the difference between a resume and a CV and how to prepare a cover letter. This lecture will also cover the basic impacts of preparing a good resume. Now let's define what is a resume. In the words of Bo Benetton, resume is a written exaggeration of only the good things a person has done in the past, as well as a wish list of the qualities a person would like to take in the future. See, words which fill up the resume should not be filled with atrocity or hatred which can pull the company away from you. The basic purpose of resume is not to get a job, but the basic purpose of resume is to get an interview. An employer basically takes 30 to 40 seconds to go through your resume. It is in such less time that you have to prepare a better resume. The points which you have to remember while preparing a better resume is that you have to match your attitudes, your abilities and your skills to the company's mission and vision. You have to provide the evidence for whatever you have done in life. It is a proof of your achievements. It is a proof of your personality. Resume is the Facebook of your total inner soul. So the basic resume preparation requires lot of details and lot of carefulness in order so that the resume can impress people. The competition is tough, the market is flooded with qualified people, and to stand out in this market you need a better perspective in terms to design a CV which can match you to the abilities and to the options of the markets. See, while creating a resume, you have got to prepare a resume which has basically three kinds of formats. First is the chronological, then is the functional and the combination. Now, how do we prepare a chronological resume format? In this, we basically describe the education and experience in terms of the consecutive years or in terms of the series of years where each year depicts what you have done. This will be in the reverse chronological sequence because what is the latest has to be put up and what is backdated has to put down. The latest positions which you have acquired would come to the top slot, and the advantage of this kind of CV is that it is easy to read. It basically gives the total ladder of the profile of the life from where you have started and where you have climbed up. The total progress of life is reflected each year wise, and the total commitment of your previous job and the commitment in terms of your academics is also reflected by the chronological resume. This is basically a kind of a resume which basically depicts the history, the profile, the commitments of people in such a way that they beautifully explain each and every event of life. Now, the chronological resume should not be used when you have a kind of a breakdown in your job or a kind of a spotty career or somewhere you have been rusticated or somewhere you have left the job for no reasons, or you have taken a break in your life, or you have taken up seasonal kind of employment. For this, basically you do not need to prepare a chronological kind of a resume because this will give a bad shape and a bad impression. For these people, you can better prepare a functional resume. Now, when you use a functional resume, it will basically depict only the functions and the activities which you have taken up in life. This will depict the important aspects of whatever projects you have taken up in life in terms where you can group the kinds of activities in terms this is the most important and this is the supporting activities, or these are the various projects you have been associated through it. So, the functional resumes will be better for people who have genuinely given a kind of a career break. Now, when you prepare a resume, what should you do? It is expected that at the top of the resume you should put your name. Use your full name with the surname. List how you can be reached. Give your address, your contact number, and then you come to the details of your father's name and your birth date and your kind of details in terms of related to education and in terms of your job descriptions. The career objective can also be one point which can be reflected at the top. The career objective basically decides the profile of a person, how he can match with the company's options. It is possible that if you put kind of a career objective, the kind of the options are less that you match up with the organization. So, it is better you can escape the objective, or even if you are putting a kind of a objective, it is better you give a broad option so as to match with the organization. Objectives would be basically related to the positions you want to sort in the organization, the kinds of the talents you want to utilize, the kind of the industry specifications to which you want to meet your career profile, and the kind of the combination of all the above statements. Now, when you write about education, the academic achievements are important. Your total commitment towards a career is reflected by the kind of education you have got. So, each education, right from high school to graduation and to post graduation and to the doctorate, it has to be depicted year wise in a reverse way. The institutes and the year of passing and the divisions and the marks percentage or the credentials have to be genuinely depicted. With the education, it is better you put your experience also, or you can make a separate table for both the aspects. It depends upon the kind of the experience or the kind of the job or the kind of education you are taking up, because most of the education is also associated with part-time training jobs or project types of training which are required in education. So, they can be depicted in simultaneously in one table. But if you have got experience in a very good company, try to reflect it in a beautiful table which will generally speak about your achievements. With the experience aspect, you could depict the position, the title, the organization name, the city, state, and the dates of employment from when to where you have been doing the job. So, all these kind of attributes would make your CV beautiful. Each detail of job has to be done. The projects completed has to be given consideration. The kind of achievements you have been taken up or you have been like associated with has to be genuinely depicted. So, these kinds of statements will put you in a better position. Now, when you take up the experience aspect, see, experiences could be added up at different levels. This could be the training sessions you have taken into the academic institutes where you were studying, or you have attended the seminars and the part-time jobs, or you are also associated with the internships. So, these parts of experiences are also important to add up a caliber to your potential. So, the other experiences, whatever you have been associated with the summer kind of training or the winter sessions or the kind of breaks which you have given up in order to take up some kind of short term course, should also be depicted with the kind of the resume experience you are trying to reflect. Now, the additional information which the resume should carry should be the additional certificates you have achieved, the additional skills you have, the clinical experiences you have, the publications and the thesis you have, the accomplishments, the awards, the memberships, the affiliations, the honors, the affiliations with the NGOs, the languages and the computer skills, the community services and the research experience. So, these are the basic points on which the CV or the resume should throw light. Now, when you take the format of the resume, it is better when you take up the combination of both when you want to reach positions when you are at very high level. For higher level, the combination of both resumes is suggested, because by this the initial years of your experience and the academics could be put up into a chronological order, and then you can become functional by specializing the kind of the affiliations and the board memberships and the kind of projects with each organization you have taken up simultaneously. So, maybe you are associated with 10 projects or you are associated with 8 projects, could be reflected in a kind of a combination resume which includes the characteristics of both the functional and the chronological. To prepare a better resume, you need some kind of tips which can impress the organization. What should be the resume length? The resume length should be only 1 page, but if it exaggerated to 2 pages, then put your name on the other sheet also and try to number the sheet. The paper size should be A4 size or it is 8.5 into 11 inches. What should be the paper color? The paper color should be white or ivory. What should be the font size? The font size should be 12, not minimum than 10 points wherever you want to put into italics something, or it should be in Times Roman or Arial. So, these are the points which you genuinely have to take into consideration when you decide the font size. When you prepare the resume, you have to proofread and give a kind of a spell check to it. Update the resume for each details. For each year you have been added up with the achievements and the skills you have achieved. The additional precautions which you take up when you prepare a resume, that is, try to keep it short. Don't write sentences in terms of elaborated explanations of whatever has happened in life. It is just a kind of a document reflecting some kind of events of your life which have to be genuinely quoted in terms of headings. So yeah, the grammar is not important, it's not the sentence is important, but the documentation in terms of your achievements is important. So highlight those achievements. Match your stationery. The stationery has to be of high and good quality, because if you take a very dirty paper or you take a kind of a loose paper, genuinely it will put a bad impression. So the paper quality which you are using for preparing a resume should be of high quality. Tailor the cover of the resume in such a way that it basically looks professional. The kind of the resumes of the formats which the common attributes you have to add it, everybody has to take it on one side, and the additional information should be genuinely required for people who are at higher position. See, when you are at a student stage, the resume is not very long, because genuinely you are starting your career. So at this stage your resume could be of one page, and the more emphasis should be given on the educational and the academic aspect, because till here you have not gained experience, you are a fresher. So in this, basically the kind of the common points which you can take up is a kind of objective, your education, your courses, your kind of projects or certificates which you have achieved, your experience in terms of internships and training, and your computer skills and language skills are important. And the additional information, when you reach a little higher stage after you cross the student age and come to a higher level, it should be the certifications, the highlights of the qualification, the volunteer services you have given to the society, the military experiences and any other experiences which you have been associated. The basic important aspect of resume is to have a good contact information. Contact information would include your name, address, both. The address should be temporary address also and the permanent address also. The address should carry the phone numbers also and the email IDs also. So this kind of complete information would put persons in secure places, because if sometimes the vacancy is there, the contact could be made up easily. Now what are the basic do's and the don'ts of preparing a resume? How do we land up with the practice of making a good resume? See, first is emphasizing on points which you should be careful about. Resume is an asset, make it carefully. Be truthful and honest about whatever you say. Keep it brief. Don't speak lie, because people will definitely catch you. Try to write and rewrite it again. Give a proof check, put a spell check, and afterwards keep the resume for your reference also. Every time when you update the resume, try to refer back the previous resume. The most common mistakes which people make, that they elaborate on their experiences and on their abilities. They genuinely try to speak lies of the abilities of which they do not possess. They are disorganized when they prepare a resume. They have the poor description of their abilities. They have got the irrelevant personal information which they want to give. They have the misdirectional approach. They are not uniform. The kind of headings are not genuinely lined up. The bullets are not proper. The kind of proofreading is not done in a proper way. So these kinds of resumes genuinely put a bad impression on the company. So to prepare a resume, you need to have some kinds of skills, and then you have to learn these skills in order to prepare and present a better kind of a resume. Now let's study what is a resume and a CV. Are they both same or are they both different? See, there is a basic difference in CV and resume. CV is a kind of a profile built up for academicians, and resume is a kind of a profile built up by the professionals to take up jobs in the corporate or the government or the non-governmental sector. So both these kinds of the formats do require a kind of a different level of skills. CVs, that is the curriculum vitae, is an essential upgradation of the academician's basic academic approach and research in his life. When you do a kind of a research in life to take up a post of a professor or to take a post of a teaching kind of faculty in an organization, then you have to prepare a CV. CV is related to the academic research and the academic abilities of a person. Now, how do we prepare a better CV? I will suggest you that you can go to the Harvard style or to the Harvard website, that is the www.harvard.edu. See the purple book there. Book will give you the basic format. It will tell you how CV can be prepared in 3 parts. The part 1 will deal with the general information. Part 2 will deal with the research, teaching and the clinical contributions. And part 3 will deal with bibliography. So, all these parts of the CV contain the detailed information of the professor's total academic work and commitment, which is genuinely a part of his life. The books published, the research papers published, the conferences attended, the seminars attended, the workshops organized, the teaching faculty genuinely guided the clinical kind of suggestions given to the other faculties or to the other institutes, the industrial liaisons and many more things which a professor is added up to his life. These all things will be covered into these kinds of formats which give the detailed description of the academic caliber of a person. Now, resume is basically used for an industry. It is more professional, it is shorter than a CV and it is just one page depicting your basic qualification and your abilities to match up with the job. Because as an academician you have more detailed life, you have more kind of reading and you have kind of more updation in terms of publications. CVs basically emphasize the scholastic achievements of a person. They basically experience the kind of the abilities the professors do put up into the kind of the teaching aids, and the kind of the CV which gives a kind of sustainability in the job positions do add up to the research abilities of the people. So, the basic format of the resume could be genuinely studied in such a way that as an academician and as professional you have different kind of skills. Now, let us study what are the basic formats to prepare a resume. There are two formats. First is the American style. This will basically cover the personal data, job objective, education, work experience, volunteer work, honors, specialized skills and references. Then is the suggested format for the current or the functional kind of the resume. This will basically cover the information that is about the objective, education, coursework, academic projects, experience, skills, activities, honors, exhibitions and references. Now, you have studied something about CV and a resume. Both these documents have a kind of a different perception and they require different skills and abilities to be prepared. Now, what should be the content and the languages of both the kind of resume and a CV? The language always has to be in kind of a format which genuinely is not based on some kind of description. You have to omit words like I have achieved, I have done, because it is already generally assumed. So, basically you do not have to use these implied words. Do not use abbreviations. Try to make a resume and a CV which genuinely has no language errors. You do have to put up sentences which are short and genuinely heading oriented. The purpose of resume is basically a kind of a marketing kind of a function. It is a marketing tool for a personality of person in the corporate. It bargains a personality for a job into the market. It puts a person in a better shape to communicate what he is, what his abilities are, how these abilities can be associated with his work, who he is and who he will become tomorrow. So, these kind of reflections will be given by the resume. It will establish enough interest for the company to take up a resume when it is beautifully prepared, because the resumes are selected on the basis of thousands of resumes and letters available for company to select. The desired skills to prepare a good resume, that you need to have a good kind of a communication ability. You need to have honesty and integrity to reflect your character. You need to have good interpersonal skills, motivational skill and an initiative to be a team member. You need to have strong work ethics and a kind of a member who can be associated with a team. You need to have a flexible personality and adaptability. See, why we are talking about these abilities is, if you have these abilities will give you a kind of a good input to achieve something which could be written in a CV. If you are a simple person, not associated with any kind of project, not doing anything in life, your CV will be dull, because you only have half page to just say what you are. But when you are associated with these kinds of skills, your personality will be reflected by the kind of associations you take up in each kind of activity and which could be written in the CV. Your identifying information about your name, your present and permanent post is very important. Both the post in terms what you were and who you are today are important to reflect the basic objective of the statement of what you want to take up in the organization. Now, when you talk about the points how you prepare an effective resume, what information should be given, what information should not be given. The information which is professional and functional should be reflected, but information which is purely personal should not be reflected. And any reason why you left job, maybe a personal reason, maybe you were fired, maybe your kind of a depression or your conflict with the colleagues should not be reflected in the resume. They are your reasons why you left the kind of the organization is something which you should not tell everybody. When you go for a preparation of a good resume or go for an interview, the reflection has to be you had different kind of career commitments and so you changed the organization. So, these kind of professional kind of attitude towards job will put you in a better shape. What information should be to basically identify yourself as a personality is, first is identify yourself, who you are, what is your education, what is your continuing education, that is still you are associated with studying some kind of degree, work experience, your voluntary experience, the kind of activities you are involved, then you have the kind of the skills and the relevant statement of what you want to be. Now, the resume skills would also include the readability of the resume document. The style should be Times Roman or Arial, because when you take up a very artistic or a kind of a designer font, it is basically very difficult to read it. So, the kind of the fonts and the kind of reading fonts which you want to put to the audiences should be visually powerful, should be simple and should be convincible. The 2 pages format is better to prepare a successful kind of a documentation without error of spellings and grammar will be required. Now, the resume should be 100% truthful. They should reflect the honesty and worthiness and the creditness of a person's nature. Your computer skills are important. Your computer upgradation in terms of learning with the Word, with the PowerPoint and the Excel is an essential element of your abilities. It is not a kind of a skill, but it is a necessity. Each competent person who wants to apply for a job needs to learn these abilities and needs to have the certification required to these courses to put a better shape to the resume. Now, the resume, when you are trying to take up as a document, how do you put the resume towards the organization? Maybe you are posting the, your resume to the organization by a speed post, or you are putting the resume through a courier service, or you are scanning and putting it to the email. So, when you prepare a resume, when you try to give the subsections and you are bulleting your points, try to avoid the dots, but you can put up some kind of dash or some kind of arrows, because when you put up dots, it is difficult to scan those documents. And the margin should be equally distributed all over. It should be 1 inch margin all 4 directions. The use of abbreviation should not be there, then it is very difficult to understand. So, you have to understand how you have to put or present the resume list or the resume document in front of the organization. Then let us come to the checklist of how do we design some kind of points which makes it presentable, the do's and don'ts of a resume. Try to choose a font style which is appropriate. Do use 1 inch margin. Try to use bold and italic headlines. Print your resume. Use a better paper quality. Use action verbs and do a proofreading. The don'ts will be, don't try to squeeze out too much information on a very small page, or don't be so brief that it does not speak anything about yourself. Do not try to include the salary history or the payments you were drawing from the organization. Do not include your picture. Do not try to say lies on a resume. So, these are the basically the kinds of the abilities which you have to cultivate in terms of what has to be done and what not has to be done to prepare a kind of a resume. Now, let us study how to prepare a cover letter. When you put your CV or resume in front of the organization, it is basically associated with a letter referring to the organization's HR manager or to the organization's recruiting agency or the recruiting officer. So, for this you need to have a letter, which is generally then the letter and the resume, they are punched together and put up into a kind of an envelope. Let us first prepare the cover letter. How do we apply for the jobs? You do have to write an application. See, you have to fax both the resume and the cover letter simultaneously, so that they can read the letter and identify who you are. The cover letter is written on your letterhead, that is your address is on the above margin. Then you address to the kind of the HR manager the name of the organization to which you are applying, and then the subject statement for which position you are applying. Then the letter would basically depict the kind of the person you are, the kind of achievements you are, and how can you associate yourself with the objectives of the organization. So, for this you basically have to do a kind of a research before you write a letter. Go to the website of the organization, find out the names of the people who are associated with the HR department, find out their designations, find out their perfect addresses, and then find out the mission and the vision of the company, what the company is looking for. Is the kind of the application associated with a solicited ad, or it is an unsolicited application. Why do we make a cover letter? See, the cover letter is genuinely designed to reflect your personality and characteristics to the organization. It provides a deeper insights of the person and his personality. His behavior is reflected by the writing abilities and the interpersonal skills by which he is able to associate with the organization. It measures the abilities of persons in terms of being very personal and being a kind of a person who is associated directly with the organization. It is a kind of a talking, a kind of a forum where the person can talk to the organization. The purpose of the cover letter is like it serves an introduction. It is the face or it is the forum between the organization and the person. A cover letter does not contain the same information which is written on the resume, but it will genuinely support the personality of a person in terms of his abilities. How do we write a cover letter? Try to get information from the websites, try to do a basic research, and then try to address the city, the state and the country of the organization. Give pure details of the positions of the person to whom you are getting associated, and do a kind of a writing in such a way that the cover letter contains the introduction, body and the closing. The introduction would tell who you are, state how you heard about the job. The body will be associated with sell yourself to the organization, highlight the key points of your personality and explain why you intend to take up the job. Closing will genuinely be action oriented, state how they can reach you and thank the employer for his interest in you. Let's study the do's and the don'ts of designing a cover letter. Now, when you design a cover letter, try to give your address in such a way that the employers can reach you easily. The address should be in full, your phone number should be there, your email ID should be there, and try to give the person's name in such a way that they are able to contact you with your first name. The don'ts would be, don't try to exaggerate or confuse the employer, don't try to write letters which are generally speaking lie about you, don't tell them about your life history and give them personal information. Try to be very professional and give the brief details of what you want to be. Now, when you design cover letters, genuinely it happens that the letters should be read by the company people. So, basically the format of the letter should be same for which you are writing letters for the other organizations also. But the only part which you can differentiate in the letter should be such that the address part and your objective in terms of matching with the organization mission would be different. Now, the general format which is generally same for organization would be like something which I will discuss and show you in these 4 boxes. The cover letter boxes will be like you have 4 paragraphs, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3 and paragraph 4. Now, in this first box we have shown you what will paragraph 1 contain. Explain why you are writing, what job you are applying for and where you saw the ad. Paragraph 2, state I am interested in this job because you have those abilities and skills, maybe in engineering or medical or science or whatever abilities you have, try to mention those. Then is the paragraph 3. The paragraph 3 will state the response you want. I would like an opportunity have an interview with you. So, try to match this kind of option that they can conduct an interview or they can send a call letter or they can directly ask you for joining, whatever they want, you should give those options also. Then paragraph 4th would genuinely give the salutation, the closing and the kind of a sincere thanks on your part. The kind of the paper quality should be genuinely high and it should be of the same quality for which you have made the resume. Now, let us see a letter which I have written when I want to apply for a industry position and I design a cover letter for my resume. Now, first is my letterhead on which Dr. Meeta Nehlani, Head, Department of Management Studies, J. Narayan Vyas University, Jodhpur. The email address is meeta_nehlani@yahoo.co.in. Then is date. Date is 3rd January 2011. 2. Address of the company to which I am applying, to the HR manager of Gartner's Consultancy, Bombay branch, India. Then is subject. This is regarding the submission of the resume for the post of research analyst. Dear sir, I am working in the academic field with the university for last 17 years in the areas of strategic management. Now I want to work with the corporate and the society. My areas of work and experience will be an asset for the company to look into the new vistas of progress and growth. My aptitude is basically towards research and upgradation. I look forward for an association with your reputed organization. Yours sincerely, Dr. Meeta Nailani, signature. So, this is a kind of a letter that basically we have designed, a kind of a sample letter which I have shown you how you can design a cover letter and send it with your resume when you are changing a job. So, these are all points where I have told you how to prepare a kind of a CV, how to prepare a kind of a resume, and how to prepare a kind of a cover. All these three documents should be designed in such a way that they are of high quality and should be closed in an envelope. They could also be put up or faxed electronically through an email, or you can generally courier the kind of the documents to the organization or speed post the documents to the organization. But anyway, this is the best measure of your personal character. This is the measure of your personality. This is the measure of your success in the organization. This basically is an introduction about a person to the corporate and to the society. Thank you, students.